Srimadadanam Bhuvigananti Puriraj. Okay. I'm just going by where the page mark was. I don't know.
You probably marked it last time.
No, I didn't. Oh, maybe last time, maybe.
No, they're reading.
Other people.
Other people.
Anyhow, this is chapter 20 of Treasure Hut. Wednesday, June 25th, 1884. Kind of a summer home or something. Days for a week. Yeah. It's in Puri or something. Jagannath. Common feature in many temples, especially South Indian temples. They did that also, yeah. Yeah. And then there was the 1 year when Thakur was in Balaram was in town. And they had their own chariot. Thakur himself pulled it around. And that chariot is still there. You go to Balaram Balaram's house. So at Ishan's invitation, Ramakrishna went to his house in Calcutta. For some time, the master had a desire to meet Pandit Shraddha Tarka Chudami. These are all very high designations. Who had been staying with one of Ishan's neighbors, so it was decided to visit Pandit here. Asura. Who was Asura? was relative of Swami Krishna, practically the same age. And he lived in the Chandrapur temple downtown. And he used to sit outside in the temple. And he was good friends with the yeah. And sometimes he would criticize Swami Krishna. He would criticize the disciples. They're wasting their time, they're not doing enough japa and everything. But secretly he was trying to get money because he had a debt in his village and everything. Yes. So a little bit of a hypocrite, but one of the characters in that play, you can say. So a few devotees, including Hazara, accompanied the master to Ishan's house. Ishan had invited one or two Brahmin scholars and a devotee who followed the tantric method of worship. Surish and Ishan's other sons were also present. Yeah, and Thakur was very fond of this Surish. I don't know if it comes here or not. He was a lawyer, and there's a very nice conversation one place where he asked him about what is your conception of God and everything. That was Surish. It may come here. Something got me. I think incense maybe.
Maybe
Yeah, the incense.
Put it
Should
off.
we take it out? Yeah, we can put it off. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, do that. Yeah.
Yeah, paper towel. Yeah. Thank you.
Some people are allergic to incense.
No, not normally.
No, on Sunday we see some, so we do not burn incense. We must send incense.
The master noticed that the tantric worshipper had a vermilion mark on his forehead and smilingly said, "I see he is branded." After a while, M and Narendra arrived and bowed before Sri Ramakrishna. The master had previously informed M that he would be at Ishan's house. Why did he inform M?
Because he wants to make it known.
Whenever he went someplace, he would tell the devotees who lived nearby so that they could all come. But M, he knew that he was taking notes. Yeah, he knew that he could record this conversation with Shasudhar and him. Yeah, so he would sometimes make sure, he would ask, go call M, or he would ask, did you hear that? And what did I say? And to repeat it. The master joked about the delay in serving their meal. One of the scholars quoted a Sanskrit verse about the anxiety created in people's minds by the pangs of hunger. Proceeding to explain the verse, he said, "The study of philosophy is indeed edifying, but poetry is more fascinating than philosophy. People listening to good poems think of the study of philosophy, Vedanta, Nyaya, Sankhya, and so forth, as dry and insipid. Again, music is more attractive than poetry. Music melts even a heart of stone. But a beautiful woman has an even greater attraction for a man's heart than music. Such a woman passing by diverts a man's attention from both poetry and music. But when a man feels the pangs of hunger, everything else, poetry, music, and woman, appears as of no consequence. Thus hunger is the most arresting thing." The master remarked with a smile, "The Pandit is witty." Soon Narendra began to sing. A few moments later, the master went upstairs for a little rest. M and Shrish accompanied him. M introduced Shrish to the master, saying, "He is a scholar and a man of peaceful nature. We were fellow students in our boyhood. Now he is a lawyer." Master. Are there any lawyers here? Huh?
There was one Indian there, he was introducing an Indian man. He's the biggest liar ever.
Liar or lawyer?
Liar.
Oh.
I mean, the accent
Are there are there any lawyers here? No, then it's okay. Master, it is a pity that such a man should practice law.
Doctors and lawyers.
Doctors and lawyers, yeah, but we have to understand why. That in Thakur's mind, that if someone is guilty and someone is a lawyer for them, they have to try to prove that they're not guilty even if they're guilty. That's the job of a lawyer. Yeah. In our system, we understand that that's in order to get a fair trial. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you lie and twist things and everything, then Thakur thought that it was something immoral. Then with doctors, if people became very wealthy because the other people are sick, so he also didn't like that idea very much. Somebody once said to Holy Mother, "Can you bless?" So but how can I bless the doctors so that there'll be more people who are sick? How can I do that? There's Nag Mahashai. Who is Nag Mahashai?
Yes,
Huh?
very good,
Great help.
devotee.
Okay.
Who was it? Maya couldn't
Yeah.
come.
He had no real interest in anything, but his father kind of pressed him to become a doctor. So he was studying. He was studying medicine. He didn't become a doctor. He was studying, and Thakur made some comment about the doctors and everything. Immediately he threw everything, his books, instruments, everything in the Ganga, and that was the end of it.
That is real initiation, just by hearing saying one time,
Yeah.
the whole life is gone.
He was a great soul.
Yeah.
So, but Swamiji,
Yeah.
being a doctor, you're helping the people who are
You're
sick
helping.
and you're helping.
He didn't mind that. It was those who made too much money, who profited. Yeah, if people would serve poor people for free, and people had money, a reasonable amount, then he had no problem with that. But this idea of making profit off of people's illness, yeah, of course, we give great respect to doctors, serving people and everything. Master, I know a few lawyers. One of them shows me great respect. He is a straightforward man. And that means that there are a lot of lawyers who aren't straightforward. Making a distinction. To Srish, what is your idea about the most essential thing in life? Srish, God exists and He alone does everything. But the attributes we ascribe to Him are not the right ones. How can a man conceive of Him? His nature is infinite. So this is actually a very insightful statement. See, we attribute all things to God. First of all, we think God lives someplace in heaven, sitting on a cloud or something like that, and not knowing God dwells within. And then we may have all different ideas that God will only care about us, that He'll kill all of our enemies, that we'll be successful and other people won't be successful. There are all sorts of things that because we take our own worldly ideas and superimpose them on our idea of God. So if we think God is compassionate, then we're limited by our own idea of compassion. We're compassionate towards people we like, not towards other people. So we think God is the same way. We're a little bit jealous, we think God is jealous. We put all of these superimposed. So it's a very good statement.
So Swami, is that a freedom or it is a, like, if I think the God is what I want to see the God, is that a freedom or is it a bondage? Is that like a limiting?
This is limiting,
Yeah.
it's part of Maya, but it can be helpful. This is Thakur's concept of Vidya Maya. Because we have to superimpose something, otherwise there's nothing to hold on to. So we give a name, that's a superimposition. We give a image, That's a superimposition. We give it personality. That's a superimposition. But these are all positive things. Sri Ramakrishna uses this term aropara, that in Vedanta, this is a kind of a negative thing. When we take the attributes of something that don't belong to it and we superimpose it, then we're making some type of error. In devotional schools, we're purposely doing that so that we can have a relationship with God. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna says, that have some type of relationship with these different bhavas that we have. If we look upon God as a child, we're superimposing this idea of childhood on God. God can't. If God is really a child, then no one else can worship God as mother or father or anything else. Everyone has to worship God as a child. But if we understand, that's my conception. As my conception, it awakens the feeling of motherhood, fatherhood within me. It helps for my spiritual life. Then this is that vidya maya. Then this is the thorn that removes the other thorn. So we have to. Well, we don't have to. We may like this idea that God has no attributes, God is infinite, absolute reality, but then how do we worship such a God and how do we meditate on such a God? So if we have some devotional feeling, then we have to rely on one of these relationships and attitudes. So we may like to think of God as a mother. If we worship God as mother, that doesn't mean that God is physically has female attributes. And, yeah, it's our attitude, because a mother is, we generally feel the father is the strict one and the mother is the loving one. So if we like to think of God as having the loving heart of a mother, then we can superimpose that idea of motherhood on God. It's not simply imagination, because God is also the source of creation. God is like a mother. The whole universe comes out of God, just as a child comes out of the mother. So there's good philosophical reasoning behind it also.
So even if it is attribute-less, there is a divinity aspect to it. I mean, it is divine. It helps the good things get supported.
Yeah, this is a very positive thing. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said, you may say that this is Maya, that this is something, but this is what frees us. Yeah. But if we say without attributes, that still is divinity, that's consciousness itself. That ocean of consciousness, of course, that's divinity.
Because it's on different level,
Yeah.
because it becomes easy to connect, have a relationship. That's
If we want to have that relationship,
Yeah.
if we want to have a concept of God that we can meditate on. Yeah. Now, if we think of God as dwelling within human beings, and then we think of the greatest manifestation as the avatar, then we meditate on the avatar.
Is it right to say this is a sattva, rajasic, grounding
That little judgmental. Some people will say it's Kali worship, the very Tamasic way of worship. Yeah, but those who do it, they may do it with great purity and love and everything. So we can't really make that kind of
As
distinction.
Divine Mother.
As Divine Mother, yeah, right, as a Divine Mother. See, for Sri Ramakrishna, his conception of Kali was absolutely sattvic. It wasn't a bloodthirsty mother or anything. It was a loving mother,
Loving.
very sweet, like a mother for a small child. That way. So this is a nice statement. Shri, God exists and He alone does everything, but the attributes we ascribe to Him are not the right ones. Yeah, because we have our human limitations. Yeah, and our concept of love sometimes is a selfish love. We don't have the pure, unselfish kind of love. So we attribute love to God, it'll also be a little bit selfish. Whereas the love of the Divine Mother will be absolutely pure and selfless. How can a man conceive of him? His nature is infinite. Master, now, Sri Ramakrishna will look at it from the other side. It's true that it's infinite, but if God is infinite, God can also manifest in a finite form. So, Master, what need is there of your counting the number of trees and branches in an orchard? So don't be too philosophical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't start picking apart all of these things. That if God is infinite, then God, if we think of God in a particular form, we've limited God. And how can we limit God? Narendra used to give these same arguments to Swami Krishna. So he said, you have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Do that and be happy. The aim of human life, of human birth, is to love God. Realize that love and be at peace. Suppose you have entered a tavern for a drink. Is it necessary for you to know how many gallons of wine there are in the tavern? One glass is enough for you. What need is there of your knowing the infinite qualities of God? You may discriminate for millions of years about God's attributes, and still you will not know Him. This vichara, there's a Thakur used this term, vichara, in Sanskrit, that it serves a purpose from one point of view. From another point of view, it's an absolute dead end. And he's constantly telling him, promise me you won't do this vichara anymore. The positive thing is that constantly we should ask ourselves, is this something that will be helpful in my spiritual life? Will this help me realize God? Will this make me more loving? Will this make me less selfish? Will this give me more compassion? Will this bring more peace to me? That type of inner discrimination is absolutely necessary. Thakur says we have to do that all the time.
Yeah, we talk about awareness,
Yeah. What is eternal? What is transitory? What is the real value in life? Is life meant just for enjoyment and pleasure, or is there something deeper? That type of discrimination we have to do. But there's another type that, what is the real nature of God, all the qualities of God, this and that. That we'll never be able to fully understand. And if we try to have that understanding before we do our spiritual practice, then we'll never get to it. This Swami Turiyananda, he used to recite a verse that just like the fool who's standing on the seashore and says, I won't take my bath until all the waves subside. We'll never get to take our bath. We have to just dive in. Yeah. So this is the pros and cons of vichara, of reasoning. That if we engage in too much reasoning, then we become a little dry, and we can never come to any conclusion. Every school of Vedanta will claim that it can prove conclusively that the others are wrong. Now, which one do we want to believe? They will all make that claim. Ramanuja will claim Shankara is wrong, Shankara will claim Madhu is wrong. They'll just go back and forth. There's no conclusive way to decide, because they all start out with the different presumptions and everything. So at some point we have to just say that this is beyond the ability of the mind to grasp these things. It's more a question of the heart and feeling. How do I love God? And how do I start? I have to do some spiritual practice if I really want to have that experience of love. So the Sri is a little bit too intellectual. He's very good. Thakur likes him very much. And he's telling him for his benefit that, oh, this is okay, but you get too much involved and God is infinite, this and that, and who can know God and everything, you'll never try to know God. So Thakur will say, even if we know one aspect, that's enough. If somebody says, how can I, if I want to experience what Ganges is like, I have to bathe in it all the way from Gomukh to Gangasagar. No, wherever you bathe in it, you've bathed in the Ganges. And we don't have to go to each and every spot. And wherever we have any experience of God, then that's enough for us. We can't possibly experience every aspect and every possible way of realizing God. A Thakur could do it. That was his uniqueness, that he practiced all these different paths. For us, we follow one path, and if we get a little glimpse through that, it's enough. The master remained silent a few minutes. A Brahmin Pandit came into the room. Master to M. There is no substance whatsoever in the worldly life. Now, this term, substance, vastu, bostu, and vastu, it has a technical sense and it has an ordinary sense. It can mean what is the real substance. The only real substance is Brahman. Yeah. Everything else is transitory or just an appearance, something like that. But it also can be used in the sense of what is there that's really substantial to hold on to. And there's worldly pleasures and enjoyments. There's something hollow. There's something that doesn't really fulfill the longing of the heart. Not that there isn't something to enjoy. We have a good meal. It was a substantial meal. Huh? It filled me up and everything. But we get hungry the next day. So it won't be able to really fulfill us the way that the experience of the divine can. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Those people who try to find fulfillment in life only through pleasures and enjoyment and everything, they'll find at some point that this world is incapable of giving us that which will ultimately fulfill us. The only thing that will ultimately fulfill us is the divine. Whether we say God or whether we say knowledge of the self, this is the one thing that is our permanent possession. It's always with us. Everything else will leave us. It will be temporary. But if we know that we carry that treasure within our hearts, we won't go searching for any other types of treasures. They'll all seem a little hollow to us. So that means this is the one substantial thing. There's no substance whatsoever in the worldly life. The members of Ishan's family are good. So he has some peace here. He has two sons who were very nice. I think it was probably the other son that Narendra was friends with. They were the same age. Suppose his sons had been lewd, disobedient, and addicted to drink and other vices, then there would have been no end to his troubles. One very seldom comes across such a religious family in which all the members are devoted to God. Now, when we think about Ishan, we have to balance two things, because there's a whole chapter advice to Ishan where Thakur really lays into him, very, very strong about what are you doing with your life now? You're doing this Purusthana of the Gayatri Mantra. I told you not to do it. I told you better to do this worship of Mother. You're still doing this arbitration, all of these other things. He really criticizes them very strongly. If that's all we understand, then we'll get a wrong view. He can do it because he loves him so much, and he respects him so much. That's why we have to balance it with this. Look at what he's saying, that one very seldom comes across such a religious family in which all the members are devoted to God. I had seen only 2 or 3 such families. Generally, one finds quarrels, misunderstanding, jealousy, and friction. Besides, there are disease, grief, and poverty in the world. Seeing this condition, I prayed to the Divine Mother, O Mother, turn my mind at once from the world to God. Look at Narendra's troubles. So this is 1884, June 25th. So it was in 1884 earlier that his father died. And the whole family was thrown into terrible poverty. Not only debts, his own relatives had a lawsuit to kick them out of the house. Yeah, it was a terrible time. His father is dead and the members of his family are starving. He has been trying his utmost to secure a position, but he has not yet found one. Just see how unsettled his mind is. To M. You used to come to Dakshineshwar very frequently, but why have you become such a rare visitor? Perhaps you have become particularly friendly with your wife. No, he's just teasing him. Yeah. M had family problems also, and this was a constant theme throughout the gospel, that he had left the family home because he couldn't get along with his father and stepmother and his brothers and everything. He had one younger brother, Kishori, who was very good, who used to go to see Sri Ramakrishna with him. But otherwise, the older brothers, he couldn't get along with them and everything. So it could be family problems, it could be lots of reasons. Otherwise, he never lost his love for Sri Ramakrishna.
Sri Ramakrishna is very hard, you know. He would say something, he really will get me, you know. He was. Yeah.
See, Sri Ramakrishna would only scold those people who he felt were his very own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Others he wouldn't say too much. So to end, you used to come to Dakshineshwar very frequently, but why have you become such a rare visitor? Perhaps you have become particularly friendly with your wife. Is it true? Why should I blame you? The influence of lust and gold is everywhere. Therefore I pray, O Divine Mother, please don't make me a worldly man. Yeah, as if that could happen. Please don't make me a worldly man if I am to be born again in a human body. Brahmin scholar, why should you say that, sir? The scriptures extol the life of a householder. Yeah, this is true, that the Buddhista is very much praised, Manu and others in these scriptures, that the householder is the backbone of society. Without the householder, there won't be any type of, they have their family life, social life, they provide jobs for people, they provide education, so without the householder you can't have a society.
Then it is advised, leave the society, leave the world. So you must just, first of all,
No, there are a few things here. One, we have to understand that he had certain type of advice for the future monks and a certain type of advice for the householders, but he had a class of householder devotees that we don't find. Yes. And when he says, after the birth of one or two children, live like brother and sister, this isn't for everybody. This is just for those like M, and even M didn't do it. Even for just a handful of very highly qualified different householder devotees that really belong to its inner circle, these antarangas. Otherwise, even with M, even with Rakal, he said go home and have some fun with your wife every once in a while. Yeah. So we have to see who he's talking to and what his advice is. And he didn't tell. He very often would tell people, this isn't for you. When to renounce householder, he has to renounce mentally. That means that live in the world without too much attachment to things, and without any selfishness, and do everything as an offering to God. But the householder life is where, see, what is Kamani Kanchan? This is Kama and Artha. These are the two Purusharthas that belong to the householder state of life. The householder is supposed to have desires, and is supposed to have wealth.
Yes.
Yeah, we have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So these two, there's Artha and Kama, are for the householder stage of life. They're supposed to enjoy the world and learn their lessons from it. Fulfill desires. So Thakur uses this phrase of bhoganta. Reach the end of your enjoyments. Finish it. You have some desire for something, finish it. Finish it. You have some types of desires, if you see that they keep getting more and more, increasing more and more, then that you don't touch. But ordinary desires, you have a desire to build up a big company, to be a little bit successful, to help other people even, finish it so that you can reach the next stage of life and then say, I'm done with that. So the householder stage of life is not supposed to be a puritanical stage of life. Very few are the householders that can live that type of life. This Nag Mahashaya was one. Almost the only one. And to a certain degree, others to a certain degree. They're very pious householders and everything, but still, unless they really wanted to renounce everything, and even then, Thakur would say, okay, but make sure that the family's taken care of. Make sure that the wife and the kids and everything, that they won't suffer if you renounce those. In those days, monks the husband could just leave the wife and become a monk. The main stipulation at any age, main stipulation was that they should have a son to look after the wife. This is what happened with Swamiji's grandfather. That as soon as they had a son, who was Swamiji's father, then he renounced everything. And then it was permitted. There are, of course, different schools of thought and everything, but Thakur used to say that if someone has that tremendous longing for God realization, then and there's no hypocrisy whatsoever, then they're fit to renounce. We've had different cases in the order. That there was one very, very great Swami of ours, the Swami Jagadananda. Jagadananda. He's the one who translated the Great Master. There's a Leela Prasanga. He translated that into English. He was a married man, with family, and was a professor of philosophy. And one day he was explaining to his students about the Upanishads, and he said that one really cannot understand the Upanishads unless one is a complete renunciate. One renounces everything, leads a life of perfect renunciation. Then only can they understand the Upanishads. So one of his students said, but you're teaching us, and you're a married man. And just like that, he said, yes, you're right. And just like that, renounced. And then came and he was older, but then he joined our order, became a very illustrious monk of our order. So, but that's a very rare case. Most of the time, when the householders came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, we want to renounce and everything, he'd say, no, when you married, you took a vow, you have an obligation to look after your wife and children. Go back home and do it. Because he knew that it wasn't sincere. M practically begged Sri Ramakrishna. He really wanted to become a monk. And Thakur would never allow it. So he knew that the time wasn't right, or he was meant to be a different type of example also. This kind of grihi sannyasi, that someone has the heart of a monk, but lives the life of the householder and works. So they're all different levels of adhikara. Those what are they qualified to do, and that will determine the advice that Thakur would give them. But in general, a householder has to practice moderation and detachment. These two things. Moderate. It's not enough to say that I won't be attached to anything, and yet day and night trying to earn more money and buy bigger cars, bigger houses and everything. That's the type of hypocrisy. So the householder has to be content with or simple things, but even those without that type of attachment, that they're all constantly worrying and thinking about it and holding on to it and afraid of losing it and everything. So that has to be for everyone, an internal renunciation. Brahmin scholar. Okay, so he says the scriptures extol the life of a householder master. Yes, that is true. So he's agreeing with it for all the reasons that I just said. but it is very difficult to lead the true life of a householder. What are the duties of a householder? We have pancha yajnas. This is a very nice way of understanding the duties of a householder. The obligation to parents, obligation to guests who will come, to God, to the teachers, to the animals even, to nature, that everything has to be done with the idea that we're born in this world with a debt or an obligation because we've been given so much. We have to give back. So we've learned so much from our teachers that we have to ourselves teach others. That the animals, they provide milk for us and they plow the fields and everything. We have to look upon them as divine and offer things to them. Teachers, in those days, deities, that you have to make offerings to the deities because they provide us with rain and sunshine and all of these things. So this is a pancha yajna, that this is the duty of a householder. So everything was done as a yajna. This is a great teaching of the Gita. Everything has to be done as symbolic. Yajna means a sacrifice. Everything has to be done as an offering, as a sacrifice. This is the main duty of the householder.
So I mean, we say all that, he did it, I did it, but again, is that our sanskaras, our, like, the life we lived before, the previous life, that brings us, like this, Swami became a monk, it's like that. So, what's this, his doing, or his, kind of grace of God, whatever he has done in the past life.
Swami Vivekananda has a very good formula.
Yes, what is that?
He says that when we do anything, we have to feel that it's completely up to us.
Up to us?
And when the results come, we feel completely up to God.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. Doesn't say, we all say, I did this, I did that.
Who else did it? You want to blame somebody else?
No, no.
Then?
No. The good things that we did it. I did it.
Yeah.
But the bad thing, somebody else did it. So I'm just saying that.
He made you do it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it. What is it? What is behind it? What is this? To me, I think if I do bad things, just like so Vivekananda said, somebody slaps you, you slapping yourself because,
That's too high philosophy.
Too high philosophy.
Too high philosophy. But Thakur says this feeling of I doesn't go away. We should accept it.
Accept it.
We accept it. Yes. And say I'm a servant of God.
Yeah.
Hanuman, did Hanuman ever say that, I don't do anything? No. I do everything for Rama.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the idea.
Give it a higher
That we have that sense of I, that sense of agency and everything. As we get higher and higher and higher, we can start to understand that this sense of I is also based on some false ideas. But in the beginning, if we do that, we'll be a hypocrite.
But is everything predetermined? So
Yeah, that's what.
Forget that.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
what-
know that.
Let the philosophers talk about that.
I mean, we don't know that.
We don't know
The only
that.
thing you can control
There's no way.
is our
There's no way to verify yes or no with that. There's no way. We work under the assumption.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We work under the assumption that whatever we do, we have to analyze first. We have to think of all the ramifications. We have to think, am I doing it for selfish reasons? Eliminate all those things, make the best possible decision, and then live with it. And if it turns out that it was a mistake, then we say, I'm sorry, I tried my best. What can I do? And if it's very successful, we say, Thakur's grace, it was successful. We don't get puffed up with pride, and we don't get dejected if it's a failure, but we do our best. It's very simple. Otherwise, we become the hypocrites. Who was it? Duryodhana. Huh? Whatever I do because you dwell in my heart. Oh, Rishikesh, you make me do it. Yeah, we can do all sorts of nonsense and say that I'm not the doer of action. God dwelling within did it. It's hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't want to be hypocrites. If we reach a very high level, when we have no selfishness, we have no desire, and we simply do the promptings of the heart, then maybe we can say, like Thakur, I speak as mother makes me speak. Otherwise, we can't say that. I can't say that. It would be complete hypocrisy. I speak as I think is the best. I try my best and everything, but I'm not going to say that Divine Mother is behind my words and telling me what to do. Maybe there'll come a point in time where I can say, now I look back on my life and say that everything was pre-planned and everything. That's a different story. That can be a very high.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
then there are other examples that, people say that without God's will,
Not a leaf will drop. Yeah.
moves,
Yeah.
or whatever is happening to you, take
Yeah.
it as God's will.
That's a different thing. Whatever happens, we take as God's will. Not whatever I do. I have to take responsibility.
So under happening, this is not
That-
a big umbrella that encompasses whatever I'm doing also.
We can make that distinction. See, that's the distinction. Whatever I do, whatever happens afterwards, whatever the result is, that's out of my hands. This is a principle of Karma Yoga. That I see adhikara. What is that adhikara? That I have the right to perform action. I have no right over the results. Famous verse from Gita also.
It's the ripe eye and
So
the
there are
ripe
different ideas that, like, I get confused with, or people just take
Yeah.
it according
See,
to
the
what
problem
they want
is-
to make of
See,
it.
we read Shokli Tomari Icha. We this
Tomari Icha.
Thakur song that he sings. That everything is your will, O mother. I do as you make me do. I speak as you make me speak. I move as you make me move. This is only for Thakur and a few rare souls. It's not for us. It's not for us. This is, as Ram Prasad is talking from a very high point of, as a saint, God realized soul can say that. We have to say, O mother, even Holy Mother used to pray, O mother, make my will one with your will.
Yeah.
That when she was young, she used to pray like that. She didn't say, whatever I do, I'm doing because you make me do it. Huh? A Thakur could say that. It's a different story. But we can pray that, Mother, please let me do everything without any selfishness. Let me do what I think is your will. Let me do what I think is the best. Let me eliminate all selfishness and everything. Do we have free will to do whatever we want? No. We're bound by our own nature, our own samskaras. But ultimately, it's a decision. Everything, like a small child, that everything is telling the child, yeah, grab that cookie. Everything, grab that cookie. Then a little voice inside says, but I really shouldn't do it. My mother told me not to do it. So all their tendencies, everything is telling them to do it, but there's a little restraint. This is what separates human beings from the animals. A little bit of self-restraint, a little bit of willpower. See, Swamiji especially, Sri Ramakrishna also, they keep telling us that exert, have some very strong determination. That means exert your will. That means practice self-control. That we can't do that if we're just like machines, that everything we do is a result of our samskaras. Then we have no freedom at all. We can't make any spiritual progress. We have enough freedom, enough free will, that we can say that, no, I won't do this. No, I'll refrain from that. Swamiji says spiritual life means fighting nature. Our nature is telling us one thing, and then the higher mind has to say no. So we have to exert what little free will that we have, and utilize that I. It may turn out to be false, but again, this is Vidyamaya. Huh? So Thakur says that because somebody asked him, is this right eye also not bondage? And he said, this is right eye, ultimately you have to transcend it, but it's through this right eye that we get rid of this ignorance. So we have to take responsibility. Thakur said, Divine Mother keeps that sense of I in us, so we'll be responsible for what we do. We won't simply say that how I couldn't help myself. Children can say that. I couldn't help myself. Why did you eat those cookies? I couldn't help myself. But once we become an adult, then even legally it's a whole different system for us. We're held responsible for our actions. Right? Now, in very strong cases where there's terrible abuse in childhood, this and that, there'll be mitigating circumstances that really psychologically damaged, they had a hold of a skewed view of things and everything. That'll be something that the lawyer can argue, the mitigating circumstances. But otherwise, we have to take some type of responsibility.
There are so many things, it's like she has said, do keep your practices, but God realization will be done only with God's grace. Swami Atmajnananda says, get tired, and then, they but wait for the God of grace. So.
We have to do our part first.
Yeah.
The parable, and then I'll stop with that. The parable of the bird that falls asleep on the mast of the ship. If the bird at the very beginning says that, oh, I'll go wherever the ship takes me, back of the mind, the bird will always be thinking, oh, I could have flown back on my own. The bird has to fly in every direction, exhaust himself and everything, then can take. This Sharanagati comes at the end. Some rare people do it in the beginning, very good, some scholars, maybe they've done it. Otherwise, we have to do the self-effort first. Self-effort, and then surrender. And the type of surrender comes. We're longing for that. Okay, then we start. Om Niranjanam Nityamanam Turupam Bhaktanupam Bhaturavikramai Ishavataram Dharanisham